Welcome to the Mary Ewing Law Show.
Hello and welcome back to the Mary Ewing Law Show. Mary is a veteran Colorado attorney who has spent more than 40 years helping clients through personal injury, workers' compensation, and family law cases. Known for her direct and compassionate approach, she helps families get through difficult transitions with clarity and confidence. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about Colorado's no-fault divorce law. What does it really mean, and how does it affect your case? Mary, welcome back.
Thank you.
So let's start out here. Can you explain exactly what a no-fault divorce is under Colorado law?
Sure. What it means is that one doesn't have to prove that the other spouse did something wrong, like adultery or abandonment or anything like that. Once upon a time, that was a necessary element of proof. I understand in some places, some countries, that's still a requirement. But generally speaking, I'm not aware of anywhere in the United States that that's true, and certainly not in Colorado. The only test is the marriage irretrievably broken? And even if one spouse says, no, I think our marriage can be saved, probably not going to help. The other spouse says, it's done, and you're going through the divorce process.
Yeah, that the fault, having to prove the fault and all that was, as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sort of an old way of keeping rights away from women, right? Like keeping them from being able to. I don't want to get into any sort of crazy stuff, but I think that's what it was designed for back in the day, so that women didn't have the right to leave their husband.
Let's face it, the law was not completely fair, let's say.
Yeah.
When it came to women's rights, and hopefully we've moved beyond that. And the no-fault system is actually intended to reduce the conflict and emotional stress that would otherwise be associated with proving that one party was to blame for the breakdown of the marriage, instead of focusing on resolving practical matters.
Mm-hmm. So some people might hear no fault and think it means one person's behavior doesn't matter at all in a divorce. Is that true?
Well, not exactly. In Colorado, as I said, the only legal basis required to obtain a divorce, or what's more appropriately called dissolution of marriage, is finding that the marriage is irretrievably broken, meaning the relationship is damaged beyond any hope of repair or reconciliation. But that's not to say that misconduct never matters. Certain behaviors can still influence the outcome of related issues. In terms of addressing division of assets and debts, for example, courts distinguish between marital fault, such as infidelity, and economic fault, which involves financial misconduct. So when the economic misconduct harms the marital estate, that's when it becomes of importance. The concept is called dissipation of marital assets. Let's say one spouse is lavishly spending on a new partner, or gambling, or transferring assets to hide them. If proven, the court can and likely will adjust the division of property to compensate for the depleted funds by holding that at-fault party financially responsible. So the amount of dissipated funds will be determined to have already been allocated to the spouse. So if it's $100,000 and the court is looking at trying to have an equal property division, they're going to assume that out of the $250,000 that would otherwise go to each spouse, the wrongdoing spouse is only going to get $150,000 because it's going to be assumed that he already got $100,000. Spouse misconduct can also be a factor in determining parental responsibilities and even parenting time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the parent's responsibility or behavior involves substance abuse or domestic violence, or he's doing something that's found to endanger the child's physical or emotional well being. The court's going to consider that in crafting a parenting plan. The consideration is not really about punishing the parent, but being strictly guided by the best interest of the child's standard.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest misconception that you think that people have when they first learn Colorado is a no fault state?
Divorce is a painful process. It just is. Emotions run high, and marital infidelity is very hurtful to the other spouse. It may not matter to the judge, but it matters to the wronged party. Difficult for that aggrieved party to get past that, especially if the other party is continuing with a relationship of the third party outside the marital relationship. So the aggrieved party just inherently wants to punish the spouse, to put up barriers between the spouse and his or her new relationship, especially in terms of parenting time with the children.
Do you think you mentioned that the no fault system is hopefully going to help the process of the divorce, the emotional side of the divorce? Do you feel like it does help, especially when someone is deeply wronged, like you described just now?
Let me explain it this way. The law says that a divorce is partly a legal proceeding and partly an equitable proceeding. In other words, the judge may rule in terms of fundamental fairness. So if a spouse, let's say, is hiding assets or not fully disclosing his assets or dissipating assets, that's going to ultimately harm that spouse in the ultimate division of assets. If the spouse is drinking and driving or charged with an offense or is guilty of abuse, especially in front of the children, that will certainly have an adverse effect on parenting time and division of parental responsibilities.
What about things like, you know, potential verbal abuse, whether that's social media, texting, I don't even talking behind someone's back with other people or something like that. Does that get played in? Can that be admissible in the proceedings?
The experts in emotional abuse or in abuse of typically women, but not always, treat both physical abuse and emotional abuse very similarly. Now, I have to say, I have had judges not be as persuaded by the bad conduct of emotional abuse and the effects that that can have. But that's not to say all judges are like that. But it can be something that they don't give full credibility to. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to have some expert testimony that explains what emotional abuse actually is. I mean, everybody yells at their spouse at some time or other. Let's face it, it just happens. That's not really considered abuse. But a pattern of uh, saying awful things, especially in front of other people or, as you mentioned, on social media, that's really harmful to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And an expert will explain why that's different from just, I get so mad at my husband because he
Right.
does this, that, and the other,
Yeah. Different situation for sure.
right?
Are there people who think that the no fault system is unfair?
I'm sure there are. You know, we all have a fundamental sense of what's right and wrong. And if one spouse has done something wrong, we inherently want to stop them. We also want to punish them. I mean, that's just human nature, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
what we are. And so not being able to address that can be quite painful to a spouse who's been
Mm-hmm.
wronged. And the effect of it depends on the circumstances as to whether it becomes a factor that affects division of assets or the children.
Does Colorado being a no-fault state speed up the process at all, or is it kind of still hit the same snags and roadblocks as any divorce?
Well, you no longer have to prove infidelity.
Yeah, true.
Abandonment is no longer an issue. So, in that respect, it speeds it up. But division of assets, the test is an equitable division. Does that mean equal? No.
Mm-hmm.
Very often, that is what happens, an equal division. But just like when somebody says, I want half the pie, you could give them the side with none of the nice apples, or you could give them the part that's really yummy and juicy. It's all in how you split the pie, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that can be of importance.
People want their to be heard, right? They want their day in court, if you will. And with no fault, does that make it so people don't feel like they get that opportunity?
Well, they don't get the opportunity, generally speaking, to talk about what a jerk their spouse was. And they'd like to do that,
Yeah.
but that's not something that they have an opportunity for.
Mm-hmm.
But most people understand that by the time they don't like it, maybe, but they understand that that's not going to be something that's going to be addressed by the court, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you find that does it actually make it less contentious? No fault.
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. I guess I'm not really surprised to hear that, but I was very curious to know if that
No,
actually helped that aspect of it.
no, I don't think so. As I said, how you divide the pie, maybe somebody absolutely wants the house and the other spouse doesn't want the house, wants it sold. And there's a fight over how much it's worth. There's so many things that come into a division of assets and a division of debt. Um, and let's face it, parents or couples may have been married a long time. It's a bit like a death. The marriage is a
Yeah.
death, the relationship, and it's painful. And how you divide everything affects people for the rest of their lives.
You mentioned that equitable doesn't mean equal. Does it depend on how contentious the divorce is as far as people's perception of equal in your mind?
Oh, I'm sure it does, because how contentious it is raises the emotions, makes people more angry. So that does have an effect for sure. But let me give you one example. Let's say it's a maintenance, which is our new word for alimony. There's a maintenance issue. And let's say typically the woman, so I'll just use that as an example, but it doesn't have to be. The woman has been out of the workforce for many years. She's been a homemaker. And the courts don't penalize her for that
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the acquisition of the assets, but it may penalize her in awarding maintenance if the other side, let's say, gets a vocational assessment who says you may be 50 years old and you've been out of the workforce for 25 years, but these are jobs that you could still get. And you could earn this amount of money. You have an earning capacity.
Mm-hmm.
That will be difficult for that woman to accept because maybe the husband never wanted her to work and she gave up her career to make him happy. And now she's getting penalized for it. That's
Mm-hmm.
hurtful. It's very difficult.
Yeah, that's a tough situation for sure. Curiosity, I'm curious about something. Are you happy with the shift to no fault? Do you think it's a good thing?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, having to prove infidelity, who wants to hear that? Who wants to have those spy films,
The
trying
spy films, yeah.
to following a spouse around to take a picture of them in a hotel room with a paramour. That's just nasty. Oh, that's what they used to do.
It's true. You see it in movies even. Like, yeah,
Right,
totally. That's what they used to do. Yeah.
right.
Wow. All right. Interesting stuff. Well, thank you very much, Mary. And thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Mary Ewing Law Show. If you're going through a divorce in Colorado and need straightforward guidance from someone who's helped families through every stage of the process, visit maryewinglaw.com or call 303 886 5400. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like, leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you don't miss any more episodes. Mary, always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Great to see you too. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.